My name is Natalia Rijos. However, I prefer to go by Nate, and my age is 21 years old.
So my name is Kaylee, and I'm 24 years old. Forgot my own age for a second, but it's fine.
My name is Melanie, and I'm 23 years old.
My name is Brian, and I am 20, almost 22 years old, actually, not even a week. I guess now I'm going to have to get in the habit of that. I'm 20.
Jason Abreu, 30 years old.
My gender identity is non-binary. However, I do lean more towards the masculine side, and my sexual identity is bisexual with more feminine women inclination.
Female and straight.
Female, and sexual orientation is pansexual.
I identify as non-binary, and I am bisexual with I was about to say bisexual with homosexual tendencies, but it kind of sounds like I'm trying to overcomplicate it just because I'm a little bit more gay, I'd say, than straight. I do such a bad job of doing anything to make myself look like my gender. And since there's technically a bit of fluidity that comes with a lot of people who are non-binary, it's more of a thing that I feel because I don't feel like a man and I don't feel like a woman. I just feel like a person. So as a result, it makes sense to not be either extreme.
I am a cisgender male, and my pronouns are he and him.
I probably brush my teeth once a day. Maybe more if I know I'm gonna meet up with someone.
Do you?
Twice a day.
Like every other day.
I'd say I try to do it every morning, every night. I forget about once a week to do it every night. And I almost always do it every morning because otherwise it just tastes gross. So.
Every morning and every night.
I do not drink because I am on medications. However, tonight I will be drinking because I just turned 21 on Sunday, October 10th. So
I drink, and I would say like maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times.
I drink, and it's every once in a while. Never smoked.
I don't smoke or vape, but on occasion while I'm filming a video, I will actually do that. But it's mostly just for like a little character or something like that, like method acting. So
I drink on occasion. I do not smoke cigarettes.
I have the standard lobe piercing on my ears. I have a nose ring, and I have one tattoo on my right shoulder blade.
I just have my earlobes pierced, like the single one that everyone gets when they're like children.
None, because I am too scared of needles, but I really want them. I really want tattoos, but again, I'm terrified. So, yeah.
when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I was hanging out with a friend and I accidentally fell onto a dock in a weird way, in such a way that part of the wood in the dock actually pierced through my private parts in such a weird way that now to this day, I am still pierced there.
I have the supernatural crest on my chest, some Ninja Turtle designs on my left arm, and a Stormtrooper skull and crossbone design tattoo on my right shoulder.
I am not currently employed. However, I am on SSI, which is Supplemental Social Security from the government, and they pay me $529 a month.
Okay.
I am currently employed. I make $16 an hour. I'm the director of before and after care. So out of school, and I don't know. I feel like I could be making more for like the amount of work that goes into all of that.
I am currently employed and I make $11 at the moment. And honestly, no, just because infant teachers are so much more important than people actually give credit to, because we're the ones that like build the foundation on how the little kids are going to learn from like now until like their whole lives, and it impacts them a lot, and people don't really fully understand that. But that's not against my employer. Like they can't help what the minimum wage is or any of that. So it's just society needs to change, and that's never going to happen. So,
but I am technically employed. I do a project which, when I started working on it, it was just someone saying, "Hey, I need you to 3D model stuff," and they were paying really well. Still is, it's paying even better now. Yeah, it's good money, I'd say.
From what my manager told me, I should make at least 42 to 45,000 a year, and I get paid about $19.50 an hour for 50 hours a week. I've had some hiccups here and there, and I'm trying to recover from them. And once I do a better job, I would hope that I get another raise.
No.
yes.
Yes, I am.
I'm currently single. I have someone in mind, but I don't know exactly how things are going to pan out.
I do not own a gun, and the only weapon that I do keep on me is a pocket knife.
So I don't own a gun, but I do have a rather large pocket knife, like not one of the ones that's like multifunctional, but just like a blade. And I keep that in the car because I can't take it into work. And then I also have a sword that I keep in my house.
I do not own a gun yet, but I'm going to. I carry a taser with me, pepper spray, and a small knife.
No, I do not own a gun, and I don't know. I feel like I sleepwalk too much, and what's going to happen if I ever get a gun is I'm going to sleepwalk to a gun and then be like, half awake and then like shoot my wall or something like that. And then I'll get kicked out by my neighbor who's always saying that I'm loud.
That is a question I do not feel 100% answering.
My political views is probably Democratic. I did vote for Biden in the 2020 elections, and I am obviously pro-abortion. Not pro-abortion, I take that back. I am pro-choice. I stand with the LGBT community. Obviously, I'm part of that community, and I want more stricter gun regulations, and I'm more on that side. That's the left side, I believe. I'm not entirely sure if that's the left or right sided.
Somewhere in the middle, like, because I'm too liberal for conservatives, and I'm too what's the opposite? Liberals think I'm too conservative. I'm like somewhere in the middle.
I'm a Republican.
My political views are a little bit controversial because they make me sound like I'm some sort of a radical, but I would self-describe as a bit of an anarcho-communist, which is basically this idea that I believe in the idea of a commune, but not on this national scale. Basically, I think if you have a small society of around 2,000 people and the laws are a little bit flexible, then you can have communism in a way that is non-invasive and still allows for democracy and individual liberties while allowing people to sum up a society that allows them the most possible freedoms while also have the most possible fairness because you have less people to solve problems for, whereas national communism or national anarchy would just be a disaster.
I don't really like to talk about politics. It just tends to give me a headache.
I am atheist, but however, was I was raised in the Catholic Church.
I identify as a Christian.
I believe. Okay, spiritual. This is gonna be the internet though. I believe there is a afterlife.
I don't think that there's much of a reason to for sure believe in a god and not believe, but realistically speaking, that's all up to you. Like whatever has led you to that conviction at the end of the day makes sense. And I think I've met a lot of people who personally their reason for turning away from the idea of theirs of being a god is that they read a lot of things that religious people have to say with bad conviction and poor taste and assume that that is what God would believe if he was real, or they realize that most of the people who are religious are quite ignorant themselves. So if those people can't be trusted to interpret their text correctly, then how could we also trust those people to be right that there for sure even is a God? So I think that's probably my take on the idea of religion as a whole is just
The way I see it is the vibes you give off into the world, you're going to get in return. So if you're polite to others, you're going to get the same vibes, the same positivity back. The more negativity you express, the more negativity is going to be returned back to you in some way, shape, or form.
My view on sex work is that it's it shouldn't be illegal, and I don't think that the people who are performing these acts for work should be punished as harshly as they are currently being punished, because I believe that a lot of them are doing such acts because of addiction, problems with securing proper employment, possibly in trafficking situations and things along those lines. And I think a lot of people just don't understand that. And when they hear the title sex worker, they think a lot of people were just like, oh, let me voluntarily sell my body for money. And even if people do that, it is their body and they have a freedom to do that. And the problem would be more with the clientele who's choosing to purchase these services for people. So if the people have a problem with sex workers, then their real problem should be with the people who are procuring those encounters. Or are you?
I think it's that's what people have chosen to do. I mean, it's the oldest profession in the world, right? So, I mean, if that's what someone feels comfortable doing, and that's a good way for them to make an income, like, and that's what they've chosen to do, like, all for it, go for it.
I believe that it should be a lot safer. People got to do what they got to do to make money, but it shouldn't be as corrupted as it is right now. It should be like in a safe environment, controlled environment, and it wouldn't be as crazy as this day if it was properly managed, if that makes sense.
Sex work is based as a concept and probably not so based in how it's done in practice. I'd say sex work is probably a very important thing in terms of liberating people and allowing them to make choices for themselves, because nobody should be told that they shouldn't be able to work for someone else's sexual pleasure if it is mutually beneficial. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that I do think that a quite controversial practice, I think prostitution should be legal, just because I think that people should have the freedom to do so. The majority of people, like 90% of people, are doing things that they don't want to do. They're going to an office job and meeting up with faces that they don't want to see so that they can sip out of a coffee mug while typing things into a computer. And while that can be a very depressing lifestyle if you don't like what you're doing, sometimes you got to do it because it pays the bills. But I think a lot of people probably get into sex work with this idea in mind that they want to express part of their sexuality, and in the process they can make money, and therefore it's a good thing. But along the way, typically what happens is they've had so much weird sexual experience now, constantly showing off their body, dancing, doing so on and so forth, that entire expression and its importance to them is actually lost along the way. And instead it's just about the money. And when it's just about the money and instead of that part of your body, then all of a sudden, while you can still have sex with people and still do stuff, it really loses its value. And I think that's probably the worst thing along the way, is because it really does turn sex work into work, which is exactly what people who despise sex work think it's not. They think it's like this escapism, this party or something like that, that you're just basically trying to take a certain part of your personality and your habits and turn it into a job when it's not. But no, the sad thing is it does become a job.
It's a job. It pays. You're able to pay your bills. It's work. A lot of people don't like it, but the way I see it is, or the way everyone has always told me, if you are good at something, you should never do it for free. So everybody who is in the sex industry, I give them a big applause because they're putting in work, just like all of us.
I am not currently sexually active because I am disabled and I'm in a wheelchair. So it makes it very hard to find people who are willing to want to engage in sexual intercourse or other sexual things in such nature. But I'm obviously if would like to be.
Not anymore. No.
Yes.
I'm actually way too sexually active. I've slowed it down in recent times. Should I?
Yes.
I do not have kids. I do want kids. I cannot have my own children naturally, but I always dreamed of adoption. I want to adopt 5 children with different special needs. And I know it'll be a lot harder for me, unfortunately, because I am disabled and I'm also a person who is LGBT, and a lot of adoption agencies discriminate against that.
I do want kids. I don't have any.
I want kids.
The fact of the matter is that everybody who has kids at some point in time probably doesn't want kids, or at least it seems like that. I think I've heard repeatedly from people that they don't want kids, and then later down the line when they get older, like when they're nearing their 30s, they tend to change their mind, especially because when you get older, sometimes you can feel a little bit alone. So sometimes feeling like you can see the upbringing of another human being in your life can sometimes be a fulfilling, like a strangely fulfilling thing. So I think eventually there's probably a point in which you might not 100% be convinced to have kids, but you would definitely consider it. And you'd probably change your mind as to whether or not you wanted kids upon having kids and realizing the merits of it. There's a lot of things that are really cool about having kids that you can really only truly know once you have them. And that's what I understand. I guess I can't say that as someone who hasn't had kids, but it's what I hear from just about everyone who's a parent. And so I think I will probably eventually want kids just to find out whether or not I am right in that assertion, and just about if everyone who's ever told me that that is the point that they got to, where they eventually wanted kids and then didn't regret it, got to.
My whole life, I've said I wanted them, but for the last 2 months, I've been on the fence about it because I don't know if I would want a child of my own anymore. Just seems like a lot of work.
The closest that I've lost to me was my dog. And I have not lost a person close to me because when I was born, fortunate, unfortunate, all of my extended family, aunts, grandparents, they were already dead. So I have not had those relationships with uncles and aunts and grandparents like everyone else, but I've also not experienced that loss of losing them.
Trying to think. Not since I was younger. When I was younger, like my great grandma died, and my she wasn't really my aunt, but for like all intents and purposes, like she was an aunt to me. But I was younger when she died of cancer, so.
I lost my grandma on my mom's side. I lost one of my really close friends. I believe it was fifth grade. She was in a wheelchair, and I used to walk her to her special classroom. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a room with other people with disabilities, and I would personally escort her to her classroom every single day. And then at the end of the school year, she just fell asleep and never woke up.
I have dealt with very little loss in my life. I'd say the closest to the closest to anyone really close was my sister, but the strange thing about that is I didn't really know my sister all that well. I didn't talk to my own siblings very often after a certain point. I just often stayed on my computer and made weird and bad little art projects I would sometimes show them. So, and I'd say of all of my siblings, the sister of mine who passed away, I probably talked to the least due to her severe disability and cerebral palsy. And while I still was very heartbroken that she had passed away, I felt like I was not nearly as close with her as I was with just about anybody else in my family. So I'd say to this day, I do not. I guess she was very close to me, but in a physical sense more than in a spiritual and understanding or like relationship sense.
I actually lost my grandmother a few months back in the first week of July.
I do not have any eating disorder, thankfully, but my daily diet is basically formula from a can because I have a stomach disorder called gastroparesis. So my stomach is paralyzed and I eat through a feeding tube. However, I'm still able to eat some things by mouth, such as drinks, light things like soup. Sometimes if I'm have a craving like pasta, donuts, things like that, I will eat them. But eventually I throw them up, and I don't throw them up because I have an eating disorder and I'm wanting to be thinner or anything like that. I just throw them up because my stomach is paralyzed. So it's not moving. The food is sitting in my stomach, and instead it just comes back up.
Nothing officially diagnosed. Um, but appointments cost money.
Covering bulimic.
I I never thought that I would have an eating disorder, but I've realized now that I do have a bit of an eating disorder, and I just sort of pondered it last night. Actually, I realized that as soon as I moved out of my parents' house and started living on my own, that I've accidentally developed an eating disorder. And the problem is not that I will not eat, but the problem is that I almost won't feed myself. I do eat 3 meals a day, but most of them are probably 2/3 of the size of an actual meal, and sometimes even smaller. And I realize that I fluctuate on weight and that I get the most food and the most nutrients whenever I'm at my folks' house, because I realize, oh wow, there's so much food here. I would, feel bad not to eat it, but I don't like wasting food. So when I buy my own food, I fail to buy anything of substantial nutritional value. I have snacks and some stuff sitting around, but I don't take care of myself because
I have a meal plan from a friend of mine who's going to be training me as soon as I get paid, because financially I'm struggling at the moment. But once I get paid, I have to buy certain ingredients and groceries, and I have to eat 6 meals a day, and it is a very high protein diet.
I have attempted suicide, I believe 3 or 4 times, and I was Baker acted twice and put in mental hospitals 3 of those times.
No.
Mm. Yes.
I don't think I've ever had a suicidal thought because I have never wanted voluntarily to die. But if it ever happens, then it's not going to happen. I'm never going to die. I'm going to live forever, and things are going to be just fine.
I would really not like to go into it, but yes.
So, originally, I wanted to do a social experiment on how honest people would be when asked socially taboo questions. But after doing these interviews, I realized I wanted to take this a completely different direction. Due to scheduling conflicts, I wasn't able to do any in-person group filming to test their changes in discomfort when answering one-on-one versus when answering to a group of strangers. While editing, I realized the question wasn't why these topics are taboo, but why we feel certain emotions attached to our answers. It's not that the questions are socially unacceptable, it's that we don't want to feel vulnerable. It was interesting to see some of the same reactions and the same emotions to some of the questions because of this. So, for example, no one elaborated on their dating lives. Everyone thought about death, and every single person lied about something at some point. Those who had lost a loved one all felt sadness, and those who had attempted suicide showed a feeling of shame. On some faces, there are micro-expressions, and others there are not. I think maybe I'm not really sure what I wanted to gain from this. I definitely didn't expect to see so much deflection, avoidance, and omissive responses. Not everyone lied about everything, but it makes me wonder why we as humans feel that need to shield ourselves. We dart our eyes, furrow our brows, thin our lips, our body language shifts with discomfort. We touch our face and hair. They all lied about something, and they all had the same tells. It's almost evolutionary that they all have the same reactions to uncomfortable questions. I think the important thing to learn here is that we all have this inherent need to protect ourselves. We all lie whether we realize it or not because we hate revealing our weak spots. But if we were honest about what made us feel open and exposed, if we were honest about our weaknesses, maybe that could make us stronger as a society.